Welcome to France. That's not a joke, that's what this cocktail is called. This week, let me show you how to make a welcome to France. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and maybe I should have said welcome to France because that's the name of the cocktail we're making today. We're making a welcome to France, and I got the inspiration for making this cocktail when I reviewed this whiskey right here. This is the Fondaugee Grand Cru whiskey. It's a French whiskey. I did a review earlier this week. I'll put a link to that up there. There'll be a link down below. And it was aged in ex-cognac barrels and ex-wine barrels. So it has a lot of like French flavors, and I was thinking, what kind of cocktail can I make with this that has like French themes to it? And I remembered I had a bottle of this liqueur right here. This is Genepy. It's an alpine liqueur, and it has like a really nice subtle sweet flavor. It's almost like green Chartreuse, and when you buy it, it comes with a little cup to drink with it. It comes in at 40% ABV, so it's quite like a strong little liqueur. And I was thinking, I want to combine those two flavors. I want to have whiskey with Genepy. I want to have a lot of French influence in this cocktail, and I actually found a recipe on the Imbibe magazine. I'll put a link to that down below because they featured a recipe by the bartender Courtney Rose at the, I think it's Petit Trois in Los Angeles in America, and she had this recipe like right here. It's like a Manhattan riff. It has whiskey, sweet vermouth, and a little bit of that Genepy liqueur. For me, I'm not using a red sweet vermouth. I'm using a white sweet vermouth. This is the Martini, the Bianco vermouth. It's not a dry vermouth. It's still quite sweet, and I quite like it. I find it not as overpoweringly sweet as you would with like a proper dark red vermouth, and I think it allows the other ingredients here, like the Genepy, just to play around a little more and be a bit more full on. But that's enough talking about the cocktail. It's time to make it. So it is going to be a stirred drink. So we're going to get our mixing glass, and we're going to pop a nice rock of ice into there before we measure out the rest of our ingredients. Starting off with our whiskey, we're going to go in with 60ml or 2 ounces of our Fondaugee French whiskey. I don't know how to pronounce this. If you know how to pronounce it, let me know down below. But it's probably the nicest French whiskey I've ever had. I haven't really had that many French whiskeys, but it has this really distinctive flavor to it. So in there with that, it is also a single malt whiskey. So if you want to recreate this but you can't get that whiskey, you can use a single malt whiskey. Next up, it's our kind of, like I said, the Martini Bianco vermouth. It's not super sweet, but it's also not super like tart or botanical. So we're going to go in with 3/4 of an ounce or 22.5ml. Just like that, into there. And then we're going to go in with our alpine liqueur, our Genepy liqueur. Some people are saying you can kind of use this almost as like a substitute for yellow Chartreuse. And I can see why they're saying that. It has this sweet herbal note to it, but it's quite distinctive and it's quite different. We're going to go in with 3/4 of an ounce, so 22.5ml of that. And I think it's quite a nice liqueur, but I don't think it's exactly like yellow Chartreuse. But if you can't find this, yellow Chartreuse is probably as close as you're going to get to it. So I'm going to pop that in there. And then we're going to stir this for about 30-35 seconds because we're going to get it really nice and cold. Okay, I think this is nicely chilled now. So we're going to get ready to strain it out into a chilled Nick and Nora glass. We're going to pop our strainer up top just to catch that ice cube into there, just like that. And then for a garnish, we're going to go with a little orange twist. So I'm going to express the oils over the top, give it a little fold, pop that just in there like that. And that right there is how I make a welcome to France. Now real quick, before I taste this cocktail, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews every Wednesday, like the review of that whiskey right there. And I put out cocktail recipes featuring whiskey every Friday. So if you want to see more like that, make sure you're subscribed. But right now, let's taste this cocktail. It's very much like a Manhattan, like you get that whiskey flavor coming through, you get the vermouth flavor coming through, and you are getting a lot of like bitters. Like there aren't any bitters in this cocktail recipe, but with the use of the Genepy, with the use of the sweet vermouth, you're getting a lot of that botanical note. If you can see in the Genepy, there's still some of the herbs they use in actually making the liqueur in there. So you get a lot of this kind of herbal botanical note that you'd normally associate with bitters, but coming through with those other ingredients. but at the core of it, you do get that whiskey. Like I said, this whiskey has a very distinctive flavor, but all around it has this kind of like herbal malty character, rather than like the caramelized biscuity malt you might expect in a Scottish or Irish single malt. You get this kind of herbal malt, and I think it plays actually really well here because the other ingredients we're using, they're quite sweet and they're quite herbal, and this whiskey, this malt, was quite sweet and quite herbal, so it comes together quite nicely. Obviously, if you use a different kind of single malt whiskey, it's not going to be a bad cocktail. It's going to be quite nice, going to be quite enjoyable. It just might not have as much of a herbal note, but depending on how you like your cocktails, you might prefer that. Me though, I quite like it, so I'm going to keep on enjoying it, and I'll see you next time. Sláinte.